What is exactly you're trying to accomplish? And it took me a little while to try to figure that out. But what I'm trying to do here is change my internal vibration so that I find a new path in life. By the way, I'm Stevie the Guide, Steve Dyer, here on the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerrville, Texas. It's 5 a.m. I finally made it to work on time today, and I have found, after doing, being a broadcaster for now 45 hours every weekday at 5 a.m., trying to find something to say, I have found that it is the initial jolt of enthusiasm kind of wears off, and then you have to daily sort of manufacture, what you're going to do. You have to become somewhat organized. You got to show up on time. And if it is your mission in life to try to raise the vibration of humanity and create a harmonic, cymatic pattern that lifts all mankind to a new level, it starts with your own internal vibration. That's where it starts. And so what I'm finding, ladies and gentlemen, moms and dads, boys and girls, is that I have to actually begin to change my internal vibration in order to do this. All right. I actually have to become a different person. It's interesting. Nikola Tesla said if you want to understand the world and the universe and so forth, you got to think in terms of frequency and vibration. And I believe that. I absolutely believe that in everything we do. It's about vibration. If you're sitting in church praying or singing, it's about vibration. If you're getting hostile or you're looking at yourself negatively, it's about vibration and frequency. And what are you putting out? And an interesting thought occurred to me that there truly is no private thought. All right, you don't have any private thoughts. And what I mean by that is that the people around you, they may not hear what you're thinking, okay, but they can feel it. And there is a universal law, all right, that governs everything. This is what makes the seasons change. This is what makes the sun come up in the morning. This is what holds the stars in a constant pattern of change. You are subject to that, as I am, and every thought that you have is vibrational, and it puts out, just like radar, it puts out a frequency. It's like a radio, right? And you have to govern what you think, and it transmutes into your actions, how you behave, your outlook. And it's also what you think every day, every moment. And this is a big responsibility, okay? But if you don't have control over your thoughts, you're attracting different kinds of things. If you're thinking positively, you're attracting positivity to you. If you're thinking negatively, you attract that. And if you examine yourself and your history, that's true. All right. And so if you are a broadcaster, and I've been thinking a lot about broadcasters lately, go figure. Each of us is actually a broadcaster transmitting a vibrational message out into the cosmos, all right? It affects everything around us, and it draws things to us. And it is a big responsibility to then have to identify what you're thinking and to deliberately manufacture in your mind quality things that will be the governing forces of your day and ultimately your life. And I have a lot of random thoughts, all right? I have a lot of scattered. I got a chattering little monkey mind, and oftentimes, and let me punctuate it by saying that that we're not just guilty of all the thoughts we think. We're actually the product of how we've been shaped over, not just our parents, but our grandparents and great-grandparents and all the way back, and all the people they came into contact with. This is how their mindset was, and this is what we've been taught from the imprinting stage of from our birth to about 6 or 7 years old, and all the way through, and whatever kind of people you've hung out. So you're not to beat yourself up if you have bad thoughts. That's what I'm saying. And what you should do, at least what I'm trying to do, let me put it that way. I'm not in the business of telling people what to do, and I try not to do that. But what I am trying to do is to become aware that this universal sort of law exists, and then to govern my thought processes every day, every moment. And this is not easy. It's not easy to do that, but if you do, you can change your stars. All right, you can shape the world however you want to. And I'm reminded in sort of the title today is from a movie called A Knight's Tale. And if you've ever seen that, that was with Heath Ledger as one of his best films. And he was a poor little boy in London, and his father was a poor guy that didn't have much to offer him, and he sent him off with a knight and told him to change his stars, and later in the movie, when the guy died, they decided that Heath would put on the armor and pretend that he was a knight, and so he started, as an imposter, riding in the big tournaments and fighting against the others just to survive. They were under heat and pressure to do something, and he stepped into this role out of necessity. And then he found he had a talent for it, and he stepped into a certain vibration at that point. He took a big chance. He stepped into a completely new mindset. And as he did better and better in these tournaments, his mindset changed, and he makes an important comment there. He says, "How did the royals become royal in the first place? They took it. All right, they took it." And what I submit to you is that they stepped into this mindset that they are in fact royal, and I believe that each and every one of us can do that, and that there's a certain type of talent, a job that we have, a career, and it starts with your thought patterns, your vibrations that you're sending out. And if you begin to believe yourself a knight or a royal or someone who's capable of a much higher station, you can in fact change your stars. And it is in that journey, that hero's journey, that struggle, that when you're willing to sort of step into the Jordan River before it parts, that's a famous Bible story. The river won't part for you. You got to first step into the river, and then it will part. All right, and so you've got to take a risk with your very life to do that. That feels like what I'm doing here sometimes. But I want to cross this river. I want to be a broadcaster. I like it. It feels good, but it's scary. Something's exciting but scary at the same time. Probably you should try that. Anyway, in The Knight's Tale, he goes through these sort of trials, and he gains some success, but then, they catch him and they find out he's not a royal, and it looks like he's going to die. But then fate steps in, and the king comes and knights him actually, and they put him in the big tournament, and all of a sudden he's fighting against the bad guy, and they announce in the whole theater that his name, Sir William, not Sir William Wallace, but you know what the guy's name was in A Knight's Tale, Thatcher. Thatcher was his name. And the guy, his buddy, comes up to him after the announcement. He says, "Hey, your father heard that, you know." And he had actually become a royal and was recognized in the world that way. And such an inspiring tale of someone who took a chance at being what he wanted to be and went through the pain and suffering that he had to go through in order to be that, and then was blessed magically because he was putting out this vibration that that's who he was. And then he got a big break, suddenly. And, you know, he lives happily after, gets the girl, and, you know, it's a great story. It's a fairy tale story. And I believe, folks, if we change our thinking, if we change our vibration, and we start attracting those people that can help us instead of attracting those who can't because we got a lower vibration, we can be who we were actually meant to be. The trick is in how you think. And again, I'll say there are no private thoughts here. You know, pretend that all your thoughts are out there for everyone to hear. If you do that, and it's not easy to do, you know, when you see someone, you know, cut you off in traffic, or someone, you know, who's undesirable looking to you, instead of looking upon them as an extension of yourself, you look upon them as some asshole. Those thoughts are not your private thoughts. When you're looking someone in the eye and you don't like them, and you're saying negative things about them in your mind, guess what? They're feeling that, and it's attracting to you. Everything we think of is attracting to us the like kind of vibration. And so an example that I thought of that especially as it relates to broadcasters, you know, it is when people are just starting out doing this, and again, my one of my mentors is Roy Williams. He says, if you want to do something, and if it's worth doing, then it's worth doing badly in the beginning. You know, it's worth the chance to look ridiculous, to get through the learning stages, and to to step into that vibration which you envision. And that is what I'm attempting to do here. I want to be a broadcaster. I want to be a famous broadcaster. You know, but how do I get there? You know, at 60 years old, how do I get there? Practice, you know, step into the shoes, you know, be willing to look ridiculous again and again and again and again and again. Try something. And if it fails, admit it frankly and try something else. But above all, try something. That's Franklin Roosevelt. But anyway, one of my favorite characters in broadcasting is a man named Les Brown. If you've never heard of Les Brown, you know, he's a motivational speaker now, and he's got his own radio show. And he is a wonderful spirit, and big, powerful black man that had a vision from the time he was small. And some of these people, you know, they got a vision when they were small, and as many of us did. You know? But the difference between them is they pursued it doggedly. You know, they knew what they wanted. My friend Bart Putterman was my childhood friend. And when he was 6, 7 years old, he'd say, "I'm going to be a doctor," you know. And every report card would come back, and Bart would show me his report card. See, straight A's, going to be a doctor. And by God, he's one of the best doctors in Houston, Texas today. And I love that guy. I hadn't seen him in a long time. Hello, Bart. You know, Les Brown, when he was a very young man, and I can't remember what town he was in, but he, from a very young age, he wanted to be a disc jockey on the radio. And so he, you know, went down to the local radio station one day and knocked on the door and said he wanted to talk to the head honcho, and they let him into the station manager, Mr. Smith or somebody. I can't remember the guy's name. But he goes in there, and Mr. Smith's sitting there drinking some coffee. And he says, "Hello, Mr. Smith. My name's Les Brown, and I want to work for you. I want to be a DJ here. And do you got a job? I'll take any job." And Mr. Smith says, "No, kid, we don't have any jobs. Get on out of here." And so he goes away. The next morning, Les Brown shows up at the station again. He says, "Mr. Smith, good morning. I'm Les Brown, and I want a job here." And he goes, "Hey, you were here yesterday. I told you we didn't have any jobs." And he goes, "Yes, sir. But I just want to make sure nobody died or got fired yesterday." And he goes, "No, get out of here." So Les Brown comes back 2 or 3 more days saying, "Good morning, Mr. Smith. I'm Les Brown. I want to go to work here, and I'm, want to make sure nobody got fired or, died or whatever." And so finally, Mr. Smith says, "God damn it, go get me a cup of coffee." And he goes, "Yes, sir." And so next thing you know, Les is cleaning up the place at night. He's sweeping the floors and, doing all the jobs nobody wants to do. But he's working in the radio station, okay? He's got his foot in the door. He's now thinking in the mindset. I mean, part of the reason I moved to Kerrville, Texas, the only reason I moved to Kerrville, Texas again after so many years is because some guys here where I work are building a internet television recording studio. Do they have a job in recording for me? No. What am I doing here? And I'm gonna get my phone and I'll show you what we're building. Right here on the banks of the Guadalupe River, we're building the most gorgeous building, and it's gonna have a big studio in it. And so what do? I'm here doing construction, helping them build the building. I'm helping them with their TV show. They got a great internet show called the Wild West Crypto Show. I assist them with that show. I assist them building the studio building. I do whatever I can to make myself available. I'm doing a little bit of real estate here and there, but it's not my primary focus. My primary focus is to learn how to do this. So until the day when I have an opportunity, this is what I'm going to do. But anyway, to finish my story about Les Brown gets himself a job in this radio station back when he may have been a teenager in his 20s. But he wanted to be a DJ. He had it locked in his mind that that's what he wanted to do. So he gets a job at the radio station and works there for probably a long time, just doing menial stuff, when one day the phone rings. And it's Mr. Smith, the station manager, and he says, "Les, one of the DJs didn't show up for work today." He goes, "Yes, sir, I know. He is out drinking last night." And he goes, "Yeah, I know." He said, "Why don't you," he says, "can you call any of the other DJs on the phone and see if they can come in for his shift?" And Les goes, "Yes, sir." He hangs up the phone. He goes, "That guy must think I'm crazy." And he calls up his mother. He says, "Mom, tell everyone I'm going to be on the radio." And hangs up, calls back the station manager, and he says, "No, sir, I couldn't find anybody." And he goes, there's a long silence on the end of the phone. He says, "Okay, Les, look, you know how to operate the controls in the radio station, right?" And he says, "Oh, yes, sir. I've studied everything. I know how this whole station runs. Yes, sir." And he goes, "Okay, Les, go on in there and you do the shift, okay? You'll be the DJ, but don't say anything. You don't have to say anything. You just, put on the records and play the music." And Les goes, "Yes, sir." He hangs up the phone. He goes, "That guy must think I'm crazy." And he goes in there, and at the appointed time, Les Brown is ready. Les Brown has been rehearsing and preparing the spiel. It's been the defining moment of his life when that opportunity opened up and he was able to get on the air. And Les Brown and people like him, they didn't start where you could just turn on your computer and any idiot could speak into the airspace. It wasn't like that. You had to wait for an opportunity to get on the radio, and this was his moment. And man, when he turned on that thing, he was like, I'm Les Brown, the greatest and the one and only, the biggest and the baddest, blah, 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 blah. And he had it all down perfect, man. He was just full of energy. He had his spiel down. He was playing the records. He was rolling. And the next thing you know, he's the DJ. And his dream, Les's dream, was one day have his own radio show. And he did that, and he went on to be this famous motivational speaker and an inspiration to millions of people. And my hat is off to Les Brown. I love people who get a vision. They get a vision, and nothing will stop them of being who they know they're supposed to be. And that's the vibration. They put out a vibration. And those things that they envision, that life that they've envisioned, begins to come to him. This is a universal law, folks, and it's only because we have undisciplined thinking that prevents us from being who we know we're supposed to be, all right? And another great example that just popped into my head is the story of Steven Spielberg, the producer, all right? Now, most people don't really know, unless they've seen a documentary about him, of how he got started as the famous director. That's what he always wanted to be, as a movie director. And Steven Spielberg, his mother, he had a great mother who knew that he had an interest in making movies. And she'd give him little Super 8 cameras, and sometimes she'd write him notes and get him out of going to school. And he'd be out in the desert, maybe with his friends, maybe by himself, in the backyard, making all kinds of little Super 8 movies. And they'd take a sack of flour, and toss it up in the air like it was an explosion, and stuff like that. I mean, that's where he got his initial spark, was, really at the encouragement of his mom. And so Steven Spielberg, at the age of 19, I believe, he decided he wanted to be a real live movie director. And I want to say it was either Paramount or Universal Studios or somewhere there in Los Angeles. He goes down to the studio, and there's a guard gate there, and he goes in and tells the guard he's got some flowers for somebody, and he schmoozes his way past the security guard. He goes back, he explores the whole set, all in the back lot and everything. And he discovers an abandoned trailer in the back of the studio. This huge, these studios are enormous. And they've got, junk yards and places where there's, things like abandoned trailers. And so what does he do? Number one, he establishes rapport with that security guys at the gate. And he is able to pass through that gate as somebody every day. And then he goes to that trailer, and he makes a custom sign that says Steven Spielberg, director. All right. And that is his home. He stays there. All right. And by the time they figured out that Steven Spielberg was not supposed to be there, all right, he was already an assistant director on 2 movies. All right. This guy worked tirelessly. He had a solid vision. He poured out the vibration that he was going to be a director, and that is who he is today. It's because of that consistency of vision, that feeling, that already knowing who you are. And that is what got him there. That step by step, day by day, thought by thought, vibration by vibration. That is how people advance themselves and put out a vibration of that's who they are. That's how it works. Their thoughts are not private. When Steven Spielberg's putting out those kind of thoughts, he's attracting to himself the opportunities that allow that to happen. When Les Brown decided he wanted to be a DJ, he was just putting out that consistent, powerful, dominant vibration all the time. There was no wavering thought in his mind, all right? That is who he was going to be. And he worked and he worked and he worked till bang, one day the door opened and the rest is history, all right? And this is how it happens. You just keep on, keep on, keep on. But it takes discipline. It takes discipline to to consistently, especially in the beginning when you haven't seen much success in that area. If you want to be an airline pilot, but you you don't know how to fly, that feeling all the time, you have to constantly be in the mindset of that's who you are. And when it comes to dedication, and I have to say it, I'm not a political person. I don't like to talk about politics. I avoid it like the plague. And I believe that, whatever decisions I make are my private decisions and nobody's business. But I will say that I heard the announcement yesterday that Rush Limbaugh has lung cancer. And last night at the State of the Union address, he was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom or something. And so you may not agree with Rush Limbaugh's politics, and I care not to talk about his views on the world. But what I do care about and what I admire deeply about Rush Limbaugh is the dedication to his craft, the practicing of his craft. Rush Limbaugh has had not a 1 hour a day, but 3 hours every day for over the last 30 years. Rush Limbaugh has been on the air Monday through Friday, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he does this without interviews. He just sits and talks about, interviews. When you get interviews, you get other people in there talking about whatever they want to talk about. You just sit back and ask them questions. And you don't have to really come up with anything but a few questions, and they'll just roll and be on the show. And Rush Limbaugh didn't do that. He didn't interview people. He studied every day and came up with more facts and more information that he fed to people in an eloquent, clear communication type way every single day. And one time Karl Rove sat in for him to do his job, and after he did that, maybe for a week, he said, I had no idea how much work it takes to be Rush Limbaugh. I mean, that guy worked. And here I've been doing this. I've done about 40 hours, talking on live internet TV. And I'm seeing that I've got to actually prepare something and have something to say. I mean, this guy had 3 solid hours of talking 5 days a week for 30 years. I mean, he's got more viewers than Australia has Australians. There are millions of people have listened to him. In 2008, he got a nationally syndicated show from Clear Channel Communication for like $400 million because they like hearing him talk about whatever he likes to talk about. Now, I'm not interested in broadcasting about politics. What I'm interested in is broadcasting about what raises people's vibration, what brings that balance between the left and right brain that gives them that electromagnetic heart energy that raises their vibration to a Christ consciousness level and helps them to be exactly who God made them to be. And not something that they were told to be. I got a quote from Frank Zappa this morning that I thought was pretty cool. If you end up with a boring, miserable life because you listen to your mom, your dad, your teacher, your priest, or some guy on television telling you how to do your shit, then you deserve it, all right? If you end up with a boring, miserable life because you listen to your mom, your dad, your teacher, your priest, or some guy on television telling you how to do your shit, then you deserve it. And that's from Frank Zappa. And that's the way Frank Zappa talked. I'm just quoting here, okay? But what he's saying, folks, is that you did not follow your internal compass, all right? You did not pay attention to your internal navigation, which was trying to tell you which way to go. Your right brain intuitive listens to your internal compass, your intuition, your God-given connection, all right? That is where it comes from. But if you are so left brain dominant that you just, all you do is listen to whoever teaches you, and do what other people say and follow the crowd just because it's safe, all right? Then you deserve a life that's unfulfilling, and that's maybe a little harsh because we're not taught how to do this. We're not taught how to follow our intuition. Not really. We're taught much more about how to follow rules, how to stay and, paint inside the lines, how to walk the straight and narrow the way people think. We are not, there's none of us who are normal, all right? There's no normal, all right? Normal is an artificial thing that is set up so in order to corral people and guide them all together in a certain direction. Sir Ken Robinson talks about strip mining a certain commodity out of the left brain. And that's why your right brain intuitives, in my opinion, are the most oppressed people group on the planet. The ones who have this broad intuition, the seers and the people who get visions and who are able to follow a intuitive path. They're the most oppressed people. You've heard me say before, Sir Ken Robinson talks about Gillian Lynn, who was a dancer, and when she was a kid, she was having trouble with school, and fortunately she went to a counselor who told her mother, your daughter's not crazy, she's a dancer, send her to a dance school, all right? And if only our educators understood how to identify those strengths in our children and basically let the children tell us who they are and then nurture that, this world would be an entirely different place. But our intuition gets squashed, and our left brain logical says, oh, in order to be a part of the establishment, the group, in order, we have this primal need to belong to a group. It's our safety. Our primal safety is to be part of the family, the group, the tribe. And but it inhibits our right brain intuitive. And this, my friends, this powerful right brain intuitive energy is actually what'll get us out of this shit. All right? Yeah. Oh, it'll get us out of this mess. I'm trying not to cuss, okay? I'm doing my best. I'm a work in progress. As Mel Gibson said when he was all, drunk and out of his mind, hey, man, I'm a work in progress, okay? And I'm doing the best I can. But and back to Rush Limbaugh, I mean, 3 fact-filled hours for 3 hours, 5 days a week for over 30 years. This is someone who can have an influence. Jordan Peterson is one of my heroes. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist from Canada, and he started making videos and putting them out on the internet. And I don't know what he gets out of it, but what I can tell you is Jordan Peterson helps a lot of people sort out stuff. And when asked why does he make these videos, he said, there's been over 250,000 people that have written into us saying it helped them, and that's why I do it. And so if one person breathes easier because they hear a little something from me, hey, that helps me. It helps you. And raises my vibration. It gives me the encouragement to go forward, maybe help another one or another one. I'm trying to, you cannot save the world, but you can clean up your little corner of it. It's like the parable of the starfish, and the little boy who's throwing the starfish out in the ocean, and the man comes along and says, what are you doing here, little boy? Look at all the starfish squiggling on the beach, what kind of difference do you think you're going to make? And then the little boy looks at him defiantly, and he throws one of those little starfish way out in the ocean. He says, it made a difference to that one, And that's the kind of thing that, you should focus on every day. Is there one person I can help? and by becoming my authentic self, is there someone that might benefit from that? Because that's ultimately what drives us, is service to our fellow man, and trying to be our unique self. It takes practice, because I've been shoved into a mold of being a real estate broker for a longest time, and nothing wrong with being a real estate broker. It helped me raise my kids and support my family for over 20 years, and so but I've hit a stage in life where, from 60 to the end of the road is not very far. It could be tomorrow. I figure when you hit 60 years old, everything else you get is gravy. I know people who have died years ago, right? And so you never know, tick tock, folks. How much time have you really got left? And if there is something instinctive in you that's telling you to be a certain way, you need to pay attention to that. There's a woman, I think I mentioned her before, named Becky Preble, very talented woman, who she counsels very successful doctors, lawyers, engineers, people who make a lot of money, but they're unhappy doing what they do. These people drink too much, they have drug problems, they're stressed out, they have anxiety, they're popping all kinds of pharmaceuticals to solve that problem, when really, and I'm no mental health professional, but it's my strong suspicion that the reason that they've got to self-medicate so much and be all stressed out is because they have not hit the right vibration, right? They have not followed the intuition into what they were uniquely made to be, all right? They have followed what the society said would make them a lot of money. And they use that smart left brain to figure out how to make that money, and they got all their people hooked on the money. Their whole families got, country clubs and, private schools and a lifestyle. And now they wake up when they're 40, 50 years old. They're trashed, okay? They don't want to do that anymore, but they feel obligated to keep the lifestyle going. And these people, they try. You see them all the time, in Houston, Texas. You go to places where guys make a lot of money, but does their health look good? Does their vibration look high? Does it seem like that is, the way human life should be? It doesn't. All right, and so I submit to you that I'm trying to, and when I talk about meditation and those things that will get you out of your mind, get you out of your left brain, loosen the grip of that left brain logical and allow that right brain intuitive come up, bringing a balance between the two and not so dominant on the one side. And this is how it comes to me, folks. And part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now is because I want to change those stars. I want to spend my time here on earth doing what I instinctively feel is much more compatible with what my divine maker made me to be. All right. And I believe when you hit that sort of harmony, it's like everything, it's vibration and frequency. And when you finally hit upon that thing that you're supposed to do, there's a harmony, there's a strong sensation, and it builds upon itself. It builds and builds, and may take you a long time, but that that you're on a path. You may have to adjust that path as you go along. But as long as you're walking on the path, you're getting better at it, all right? You cannot sit around and dream about this path and get better at it. It does not happen this way. You have to step into the Jordan River first before it parts. And when you want something, the universe conspires to help you get it. That's a famous line from The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. And one of my favorite little books, Les Brown, Jordan Peterson, Rush Limbaugh, they feel a need to speak, and that's what they do. You may feel a need to be a forest ranger, all right? You may feel a need to be a firefighter. You may feel a need to be in a job that doesn't pay you as much as it's paying right now. And that is the rub, isn't it? Oftentimes what you instinctively feel you're supposed to do doesn't pay as much, right? And that is something that a lot of people wrestle with. I know I do. But so what do? Well, what I'm doing is before I go to work in the morning at the job that pays me money, I have a side gig, all right? I have a side gig that I practice at, and it took me months to get over myself and just start talking on this damn thing. But as I do it, it feels a little better. It feels a little easier, a little bit more normal. The radar is beginning to sort of track on that intuitive path, all right? And the left brain logical is saying, no, you idiot, don't do that, all right? Don't do it. You're going to fail. You're not going to get rewarded. What will people think? Blah, 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 all those things, you know. But when you feel the vibration and you know you feel it, and here's another rub, is that when you know, you have an internal compass, an internal navigation. And when you become truly aware of it, all right, and you're doing something that you know instinctively is not heading you in the right direction, all right? If you're unaware, that's another matter. But when you actually are aware in that small, still voice, you know, call it God, the universe, the cosmos, you know, whatever you want to. But when you feel it, when you feel the small, still voice, the Bible teaches us about this. If you deny that and you keep doing the negative things that you've been doing, you know, the laziness, the drunkenness, the angriness, and all those negative lower vibrations, I mean, you keep doing that, then you attract even more and more negativity, and it goes downhill from there. And you have to, once you're made aware, once the divine power, the divine law makes you aware of what's going on, well then, you know, you have to respond to that and behave, you know, turn your actions in that direction. And, you know, and find it in any Sunday school, but it is so. It's not just, hey, you got to be good because you get in trouble. It's really, hey, you have to think in a different manner and put out a different vibration. Your thoughts are not private. You know, get that through your thick skull. The thoughts that you have are not private, all right? They're not. People cannot hear them, you know, necessarily with their ears. But they feel them, and the universe feels them. You are a part of the whole. The creator that made the universe, made the oceans, made the wind and the sun, you know, and all those divinely organized structures. You are actually a part of that. And so what you think is the most creative thing you have. It is the divine gift that you've been given to be able to think and imagine. You cannot walk down the street without first you imagine yourself doing it, right? You can't. And you do it so instinctively and so automatically you don't realize that. But in order to do anything, you have to first imagine yourself. You create it in your mind. You're constantly a creator. Just, you know, like the creator of the universe, you are a small part of that. And Jesus, I believe, was trying to tell us that. And so it is important what you create in your mind. And if you're constantly allowing yourself to be guided by these lower forces, and you're just following the crowd, you know, it's not making use of the actual gift. The gift is your imagination and creativity, and beginning to track on that, rather than being guided by someone else. To be able to actually internally talk to yourself and say, well, what do I believe about that, or what do I think I should do? And when you get that voice that says, maybe you shouldn't go hang out in that bar this afternoon where you've been hanging out for the last many years, all right? Maybe you should make another choice about where you're going to spend your time. Maybe you shouldn't just hang around and watch television every evening. Maybe there's something you could read, or maybe something valuable on YouTube you could see. And trying to pay attention to how you're naturally vibrating, because that's what you're doing. And to pay attention to that internal compass. I always like to use this metaphor of flying in an airplane from Los Angeles to Honolulu. And the first thing a pilot's going to do is set his navigation for Honolulu. He knows what the target is, and he sets the navigation of the aircraft to that. It's a vibrational device, all right, and tells him the position of the aircraft. And so he takes off, and his intent is to go in a straight line from Los Angeles to Honolulu. But never in the history of aircraft has this happened, okay? Never. An aircraft is constantly in a state of being blown off course by the elements. The heavier elements are trying to push that plane to the left or right. Sometimes there's a storm; it's blown way off course, And but when the navigation is set, it adjusts, and so we're in a constant state of adjustment. It's very much, well, the way you think and the way your vibrations operate is very much like the navigation of an aircraft operates. All right, it really is. And if you have set that navigation properly, it's constantly going to be attempting to navigate you through the weather. All right, and to get you to that destination. So if you, like Les Brown, if you set in your mind that you're going to be a broadcaster, and that's where you're set, it doesn't matter where the wind blows. You're putting out the vibration. You're not receiving so much as you're powerfully transmitting the vibration that is where you're going. And once you set that on your craft, then it's constantly weaving through the obstacles to get you to that location. All right, and so if you start to look upon not just your brain, but your spirit, your very soul, all right, and what's it here for? This body's a temporary deal, man. It's just a vehicle. You're here to learn and exercise. And I believe that this, my friends, is the exercise that we were all sent here to learn, all right? To learn, to be able to recognize and identify this internal navigation that we all possess. To understand that it's there, all right? That it's truly there within us. That it is God-given and divine, all right? And that if we can pay attention to it, that it will lead us exactly where we need to go and carry out the mission that we're supposed to carry out on this planet. And hey, time is always moving. A friend of mine, very good friend of mine, told me about her son who, when he was a little boy, she would talk to him about time. And she'd say, "Oh, honey, we don't have time to stay here and do that right now. We've got to go." And the little boy looks at her like intuitive little boys do, and he goes, "Time? What's time?" And she said, "Well, it's time on the time clock, honey." Yeah. And he goes, "Time? I don't like this word time. This is not a good word. What does that mean? What is time?" I just, I love little kids and talking to them. And I remember when I was a little kid, and your whole concept of the world has been shaped by unusual forces. And the exercise of being here on this planet, as I see it, is to try to identify and make real that inner intuitive voice, that small, still voice. It's not the loud one. This is what the Buddhist monks taught me, is the loud voice is always that left brain ego, and it's all about, what's happening today and tomorrow and then, and what am I afraid of, and what am I worried about, and what do I regret, what am I guilty of, and all those many distractions that occupy our minds. And if we can find a way to loosen that and let that relax, not get rid of it, it helps us too much, but to let it relax and to bring a balance into this more still part of ourselves, it teaches us all manner of things, and it is my opinion that it accesses a much higher realm of intelligence. And people scoff at that notion sometimes, but if you don't have access to a higher realm, then how in the world can somebody like Mozart arrive on this planet and he already knows how to play the piano? Nobody taught him. How in the world can a man be struck by lightning? A full-grown orthopedic surgeon in New York, how can he be struck by lightning and all of a sudden begin to play and write symphony quality music if he's never had any training whatsoever in music? From where does that intelligence come? All right, this is true. It's called acquired savant syndrome. I will refer to it over and over because these are true cases. How in the world can a psychic help the police find a lost child? How is this possible? It's possible because people actually can access a higher realm of knowledge, and that notion has been squashed, and this is why I say the right brain intuitives, the people on our planet, it's not supernatural. It's actually quite natural and common for people to have all manner of different perception that you can't measure with a yardstick. Okay, it is far beyond that. And the sooner that our world, I think I'm going to start a radio station called Intuition Radio or something like that, because I believe that there are many, and in 2 years of doing the Forbidden Discussions, which has been a weekly discussion group about all manner of wild things that I've done both in Austin and here in Kerrville, Texas. What I have found is that it brings comfort to a frightened group of people who do not want to share openly that they've had all sorts of supernatural experiences. When I start talking about when I was a little boy and, a couple of supernatural visitors came to see me and shot me with a vibrational device right here in the abdomen. It's a clear memory of mine. Two aliens, angels, whatever you want to call them, they came to visit. They levitated me out of my bed into the front yard and they shot me with something. And then they put me back there. This is my honest, authentic reality. All right. Later, I had an out-of-body experience where I've never been afraid of death again. I've been divinely protected, especially in a horrific car crash. I've been divinely guided by people that just showed up all of a sudden and pointed me in the right direction. I've had a past life regression experience during hypnosis. And this is my reality, folks, and I'm not afraid to tell you. I'm becoming less afraid all the time to talk about the things that are meaningful to me. And I'll tell you why. Is because as I talk about that, I'm not some dreadlocked bohemian here with a bunch of tattoos and piercings. I'm not disparaging people but I'm a fairly conservative guy. I mean, 20 years in the Baptist church, and that's kind of the way I roll. And so for me to start telling you these sorts of things, what happens and what I've noticed over a couple of years' time is that it begins to give people real comfort. That I'm vulnerable and open in this way, and when I begin to reveal to them some of my most innermost private thoughts that I don't share openly with everyone, and I tell them about these supernatural things that have happened in my life, and be genuine and honest for no other reason than I really love you and I want to share with you what's happened. The reaction is a compatible vibration. They become more open and honest with me. They tell me things that they wouldn't tell their husband, their wife, their family, and they become an adult, and they've never told anybody, but they'll tell me, and they'll tell the people in these meetings. And the reason why is because they find, for the first time in their lives, they find a place of comfort that they say, well, wow, I'm not really all that strange. There are others who speak this intergalactic language, this language of the unseen. People commonly have all these different experiences. They did see a ghost in the old farmhouse. They did have a friend who was called an imaginary friend when they were little. There was someone who was there caring for them. If you cannot see that, I understand. The world is geared for you not to see it, all right? And there's an oppression that happens, especially very early on. There was once a Jesuit missionary. He was a Jesuit priest that said, give me the child from 0 to 7, and I'll give you the man, all right? And so from 0 to 7 years old, what he means is you can shape people into whatever you want, but between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. And that is what's happened to all of us. I believe the exercise is to begin to grow out of that conditioning terrarium. And to grow naturally. Terrarium is a glass enclosure where you put plants and they grow healthy and safe for a long time. But at some point, when they're growing naturally and those plants are instinctively reaching for the sun, then they hit the glass of the terrarium and they start to become stunted. And they've got to be unhappy in there, just like a lion in a small cage. And those plants are not allowed. They don't die, at least not right away, but they are not allowed to grow naturally and instinctively because they have this glass enclosure around them. And so I submit to you that part of the exercise of being a human being on this planet is to find your way outside of that glass enclosure and to grow naturally and instinctively the way God made you to be, all right? And when you start to get feelings that I'm supposed to go in a different direction, but society and family and culture are all trying to force me into this box, you got two choices here, pal. You got two choices. You can comply and live what Henry David Thoreau calls a life of quiet desperation. Or you can break out of that glass, come what may, all right? And I, for one, had gotten to a place where I could no longer breathe inside of that enclosure, and I had to get out. I had to be able to move freely, to not be restricted in what I think, who I talk to, what I read, what I associate with, what classes I attend. I wasn't really free to be me, and I think that if you find that you're in a restrictive place, I'm not saying, chuck the whole thing and run, but what I am saying is begin to listen to that intuition and to move in that direction as best as you are able. We have been inhibited, and you're not to beat yourself up if your thought patterns are not strong. I know I struggle with this every day, but trying to get a hold of your autonomy, you are a sovereign nation. You are a divine being in the image of God, with many of the same creative powers that were given to you by God. And you were created just like any unique species on this planet to be your true and unique self. And you have a mission to carry out. It's a great mission, and you're important into the world that you do carry out that mission. I love that Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and then go and do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive, right? That's what the world needs. And it's the right brain intuitives who find what makes them come alive, right? And oftentimes they're downtrodden and poo-pooed, but I'm telling you, find what makes you come alive, friends. Find what makes you come alive and begin to pursue that, and you will, in fact, change your stars. And every day that you go to sleep at night, you know, it may not happen overnight, but every night when you go to sleep, you can say, I did a little something and I got a little closer. And so I'll leave you with that. It's 6 o'clock here, Stevie the Guide on the banks of the Guadalupe River, telling you, I love you, baby. I love you with all my heart. And I'm going to give it to you honest and authentic, just the way it comes to me, come what may. I'm bringing it, you know. So I'll see you tomorrow. Love you.